Alright. And welcome, guys. Thank you for joining us on this special lockdown edition of the virtual star party. And we hope you're doing well. So, welcome. And if this is your first time seeing this, because we've done a little bit of Facebook advertising, welcome. And what you've got yourself into is a whole barrel of laughs. Uh, plus looking at fantastic stuff in the sky and maybe a few little telescope issues every now and then. So my name's Matt, and I'm a volunteer at the Perth Observatory and tour administrator. And tonight we've got Roger again, and Roger is also a volunteer at the Perth Observatory and also runs astrophotography workshops with his Astrophotography Australia, and is one of the best astrophotographers in Western Australia. He won't say it himself, but I can say it. And I just get to see
Matt. I like to consider myself a jack of all trades rather than a specialist, and there are specialists out there which are certainly better at each individual area of astrophotography than I am. But you can't be good at everything.
No, you can't, but you can be good at lots of things. So, all right. Well, first of all, guys, if you haven't already done this, hopefully you'll love what we do tonight. That you'll subscribe to our YouTube page and go back and watch some of our other live streams. There's some pretty cool stuff that we've done showing since the original lockdown of the observatory, lockdown for COVID back in I think all these months back in March, and so we've gone through an entire I know. We've gone through a whole winter season with objects you can only see in winter, and we're starting to come back to this. We've got the summer objects in the night sky now, and we've actually had a good run of clear nights, knocking on wood as I say that, because I think something like the first 5 live streams we did back in COVID, original lockdown, were originally cloudy. So we hope you're doing.
Did have a bad run then, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. So hopefully everyone's safe. I know if you're from not in West Australia, we've got everything happens in threes. We've got a cyclone developing up the north of West Australia. Perth and the southwest and the Peel area is currently in lockdown because we had one of the security guards at one of the hotel quarantine, or the quarantine hotels, had got sick and managed to get around the area, around middle of Perth, for a few days before he came down sick. So hopefully the lockdown will be lifted at the end of on Friday. And then we've got a whole heap of area in just north of where Roger's living that has been burning, and my sister, whose birthday was yesterday, spent that day and today fighting fires, and also it's my mum's birthday today, so I'd like to say happy birthday to Mum and also my sister, and we're making a trifle for my sister. Or the kids we've got them up there as well, because my sister is living in one of the red zones as well, so she had to evacuate the house as well. So while fighting the fires, so thankfully Roger is okay, and we've got a few other volunteers in the area, and they've luckily enough had their houses saved. But Roger and a few of these people have known people that have lost their homes, so we hope hopefully everything can go better than what has happened so far.
Yeah, it's a difficult night. It's not to dwell on it too much, but I can hear the wind gusting around out here quite severely, and that is not good. So all the best of luck to everyone that's out there tonight, because it's not a good night.
No, and it's blowing a gale outside as well, so we're looking probably about 30 kilometre per hour winds at the moment. So hopefully it does get better here. All right, so enough of that kind of stuff. If you want to ask any questions while we watch this, please do. We've got our Discord channel here, which you can see down the bottom, and you can actually ask there's a link to join, and as we go along, Roger and I will actually answer those questions for you. And we've even had some pretty interesting questions that weren't related to what we were looking at, so we'll try to answer those as well. So, to start off the night, it's slowly getting there, but this is the Christmas tree cluster, isn't it, Roger?
Yeah, the Christmas Tree Nebula. There's a couple of different objects which sort of tag along with the name of Christmas tree something, and this is really the Christmas Tree Nebula. It's also referred to as the Cone Nebula. I'll be honest, I haven't really photographed this thing before, but you can see there the cone shape, and that's really what is being identified as the Christmas tree shape or the cone shape. It's an emissions nebula, and there's star formation going on. Looking as far as the photography goes here, I'm using my small refractor again tonight. Matt and I were hoping to use my larger telescope with the smaller field of view, more sensitive camera, but the wind, like Matt said, here in the hills of Perth, it's gusting, well, just now it's gusting here up to about 65 km per hour, and out at my telescope it's gusting to about, well, it's averaging about 40 km per hour.
So that's just on the limit for your route.
I may have upped the limit slightly tonight just for you, Matt.
Thank you.
But so because of that windy situation, we've gone back to the shorter focal length, and so that's why this is quite a zoomed out field of view of the nebula. And I'm using the luminance filter here, so focal length about 600 millimeter, luminance filter, my ZWO 1600 Pro, and I realized when I signed on to do this with Matt just tonight that I hadn't got around to looking at the software that Ken suggested for us last time to do
Astrophotography
live, yeah, and SharpCat. So apologies for continuing with the mono pictures, but this week has been not good. So
no, I think we'll let you off this time.
So yeah, this is using the luminance filter. I might try the HA actually, because what's happening here is that these stars are quite bright. Got a bit of noise trailing through here because I'm not applying any calibration frames to this. But yeah, I'll stop these luminance exposures, and we'll see how it goes with a few HA.
Nice.
And maybe that will show up the nebulosity a bit differently.
Yep, and while you do that, I'll just transfer over to Stellarium so we can actually show the people where we are looking tonight. So, this is Perth Observatory with no moon, so we've got our visitors observing facility, which has our Carver telescope. Over here we have a dark dome here. This is the Millennium telescope. Over where it says south here, this is there's a dome there which has the original Perth Observatory telescope, and we also have here the octagonal dome, which was the very first public telescope for when we moved up into Bickley. So we're looking in the north. We're looking in the northeast, and just up here is the Christmas tree nebula, and this is where we're looking. So we can zoom in. So there's lovely. We can actually see what it looks like if you did lots and lots and lots of astrophotography photos and stacking them together. So there's quite a lovely area around here. That's why in the northern during the summer we get a lot of nice objects in the northern hemisphere. So we have, if we do the art as well, you can see that it's in Monocronos, the unicorn, and we've got Orion here as well, and Taurus the bull as well. So this is where we're looking. So, you know, if you can kind of use Perseon in the Canis Minor, the Sirius, and also Betelgeuse to try and find where it is. So, yeah. And so we'll go back to the image and see how we're doing with Roger.
Yeah, not a lot there at the moment.
No.
We've got, what have we got? We've got one image only. Let's just see if this one brings in any more.
Yep. But it's a very the actual what we're seeing at the moment is the star cluster area, and it is a very young star cluster. And there's we showed you where the Cone Nebula was, but there's also the Foxfur Nebula, and it was named after the actual cluster itself being a triangular shape, and so it's quite it's a very young developing area. So open star clusters, you have are what happens from the creation from what a nebula is. So a nebula is a cloudy material of stuff that will make stars. So hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, and so the building blocks of essentially life. And you'll get bits of these nebula starting to clump together and form stars. And so once over a couple of 100 million years, the stars will have been all born. There's been maybe little dust left over, which is blown away, and what's left over are stars that are just loosely orbiting around each other, and that is what we have here. So these stars are anywhere between, say, toddler to teenager age for stars, and they will splinter off and go off in their own directions. So this is what we're looking at the moment, and it's you get some quite some big stars here, some big Type O stars that if you were to put them in our solar system, they will gobble up Earth, Mercury, and maybe even Jupiter as well.
Hmm. It is a nice diverse cluster. It's it's got a good combination of stars and nebulosity, but it's evident clearly from these exposures happening at the moment, which are 1 minute exposures, that it's a faint object. I would say it's not coming up as bright as the Horsehead, and the Horsehead is difficult to see visually in a large telescope. So this is not something you would look at visually, I would expect.
No, they would have had to have done a number. So this was discovered by William Herschel back in 1784. So they would have been doing at least some glass plates to try and get that. Yeah.
So
it took him a year to discover nebulosity.
All right. We'll let it do a couple more exposures, and with this HA filter, and then we'll try our next object maybe, which I'm not sure if I'm going to get actually. So it'll be interesting to see.
So there are about there's about 600 members that are very, very, very young. They're about 1 to 4 million years old. So think of basically newborn. But there are about 400 lower mass members who are relatively older, slightly older as well. So you're looking at about 1,000 stars in that cluster or so. So it's relatively big.
It is often surprising how many stars there are in these clusters.
Yeah.
You look at them on a screen and you don't necessarily get that impression.
Yeah, and a lot of it is once you've got a infrared camera, then you can actually you can see all of these guys, because some of the dust is actually blocking some of these stars, or they're in cocoons, and it's about 2,600 light years away from us. So it is a little bit distant.
Yep. All right. Well, the next one which we're going to try is the Crab Nebula M1, which is a supernova. We'll see if this actually is above my horizon limits here.
Okay.
Oh wow, it's right on the meridian. That's poor planning, Matt.
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, everyone. Sorry.
Never mind that it was my planning.
Yeah.
Let's see. Is it going to slew the telescope? It is going to slew the telescope the entire way.
Yeah, go telescope.
The night sky. If we go to the zenith view here.
All right. So while that's moving, we'll go back to Stellarium, and so we're going from the Christmas tree cluster right here and we're zooming over to the end of one of Taurus's horns, and this is M1, the Messier 1 or the Crab Nebula. And the Crab Nebula is very, very famous because this is not only a nebula, but it's a planetary nebula. And it's a nebula that's been caused by a star blowing itself to bits as well. So it's it's actually a decent amount of light years away from us. So this one is approximately 6,500 light years away from Earth. So when we see these objects, we're actually seeing them as they were back then, and we actually know that humans back in 1055, 54 AD actually saw this supernova
Yeah,
because
it's quite interesting.
we've got records from the Chinese astronomers back in the day that they actually saw this one. So this has happened within recent times in terms of uh, Earth's history. So, and
Yeah,
it, yeah, go ahead.
it's interesting how I see that it was observed visually through in 1840 using a 36-inch telescope.
That's a
Um,
decent size. That's only about 6 inches off what we've got
that's
at the
right.
observatory.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive for 1840, isn't it?
Yeah, especially with the making a single mirror that big back then. So
Mm.
yeah, and
So I remember trying to photograph this one originally through my Meade telescope uh, back in, I don't know, it must have been early 2000s. I had a SBIG ST7 CCD camera, which is very sensitive. The ST7s were very sensitive, but there was parallel port communications back in those days, and it was a small chip,
hmm,
about 765 pixels wide, I think.
yep,
And it was an interesting one to observe because it is quite small, as we've now seen here in this image. Um, but it it takes different filters to really bring out the different detail in it. The shots you see from Hubble are really quite spectacular, but yeah, it takes a little bit of work actually. I
yes,
gotta say.
we do need to invest in that Perth Observatory Space Telescope.
Oh yeah, look, I've
Actually,
had
that
that
that you
theory
know what
for
the
a long
acronym for
time.
that would be? The acronym for that would be POST, Perth
Oh, nice.
Observatory Space Telescope. Yeah,
Let's just
yeah,
post that telescope to orbit.
yes.
While this is just accumulating a few
Hmm.
frames, I'm just going to do a little advert for Astrofest that we've
Yeah,
got
go
coming up.
ahead.
Um, my life has been consumed by many things lately, none of which have been doing my own astrophotography, but one of them has been Astrofest. So I curate the Astrofest astrophotography exhibition, and this year's has been judged, and the winner's chosen, and some lucky winner is going to win a $6,500 telescope, almost $6,500. Sorry, not telescope, camera, Sony Alpha Mark III from Sony Australia. And so we've got that on the 20th of Feb.
Ooh,
And of course, Western Australia is in COVID lockdown at the moment. But regardless of whether that goes ahead or not, the prints are being printed. The prints will be shown, whether it's then or in a gallery later. The winners will be announced. We will have some kind of events, and at this stage, it's going to be the Astrofest event on the 20th of Feb. So if you haven't been to that before, get along to Curtin Stadium. We've got all sorts of procedures and controls in place for COVID so that it can operate safely and legally. But obviously, we'll wait and see how the current situation turns out. But all
yep.
go at this stage.
So when you get there, you will be given your free hazmat suit, and you'll be sprayed down. And
And then you can pretend that you're a spaceman.
yes, yeah. And I've been judged, and unfortunately, I've been found wanting. So, but I will still continue to try and take better photos and send them in. So I will get on that.
That's good, Matt, because
I will get
we
an
do
image.
we do want people to continue to try.
Yeah.
I'm really heartened that this year we've got a really diverse range of newbie and intermediate level astrophotographers entering, and they're just having a go. And I want those people, irrespective of whether they get a prize or get included in the exhibition or not, I just want them to keep having a go, because that's what it's all about, this hobby.
Yeah. And it's you can it's something you can develop, and it helps you take photos not only of the night sky but of your cat or your dog or a nice scenery as well. So
if,
yeah,
if they
yep.
jump over the moon at night,
And
yeah.
yeah, and look, you'll also you'll get better selfies as well. You'll start to work around with your ISO and exposure time, and you'll
Well,
also
that
develop.
is true. You do learn a lot about how to use your camera with astrophotography. I always laugh. People come to the workshop sometimes with a camera they've borrowed from someone because it's a better camera than what they have, but they have never used it, let alone in the dark. And I tell you what, it's a steep learning curve using a camera in the dark for the first time. And
Yes,
irrespective of that, people learn a lot about their cameras when they do our
yep.
astrophotography
And it's
workshops.
always best once you finish taking photos at night, just switch the settings back to daytime, because when you when you turn it back on and you're looking at the actual live view, you can get almost like a flash of white when you turn it on. So yeah,
Yes, yeah, it does sometimes take a bit to revert our cameras back to daytime settings, and our
mm.
partners slash wives slash families always discover the cameras left on Astro settings and go, "What have you done?" Right, well, we've got
Look,
M1
it's
here.
coming up. Nice. And
Yeah,
this is a result of an extremely bright supernova explosion, and so this was actually viewable for 2 years. So this not only did we able to see it in the night sky here, but if you're in another galaxy looking at our galaxy, you would have seen this supernova for 2 years, and it was later actually observed. This remnant was actually observed by John Bevis, who discovered it in 1731. So, and this is why we call it M1, is because Charles Messier actually, when he was compiling his catalogue, named this as his first target as well. So, and he also classed it as a pulsar wind nebula. And at the heart of that nebula, right there, is a pulsar, which is a star that's being crushed, not enough to form a black hole, but it's you've got a star. The core has been crushed from anywhere between a couple of 100,000 kilometers across down to about 20 kilometers in about speed within the speed of about 23% of the speed of light. And so it's very ultra dense. It's about a teaspoon of this material will weigh about the same as Mount Everest, and this thing has kept its original rotational momentum from the original star. So it does it because it's so small now. It's actually rotating so quickly that it rotates 30 times a second, and it is precise. You can actually use this as a timepiece, and you can use them as a galactical GPS system once we start to explore not only our solar system but also interstellar space as well.
that's
Yeah.
interesting. I'd never looked at the details of M1 enough to know that it had a pulsar in it.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's even you'll know this, Roger, but there's even a thing called millisecond pulsars where they're rotating so fast that they're rotating hundreds, if not thousands, of times a second, and so we don't know yet whether it's a type of neutron star or if it's a phase that a neutron star goes through, because there's also a magnetar where it has a very strong magnetic field, and when you break the crust, you can get these violent gamma ray bursts coming off them as well. So, or X-ray bursts and radio bursts as well, and you can actually get mountains on pulsars and magnetars, but mountains for them are like 1 centimeter high. That's how how much it is. So, but you essentially what you've got is the core of the star has been squeezed so much that if you can remember back to chemistry and science, you've got this the I'll draw back the atom at the center where you've got the protons, which are the positive charge, neutrons, which don't have any charge, and the electrons, which are orbiting, which have the negative charge. There's been so much pressure applied that the protons and the electrons have been turned into neutrons. So you just have this massive big ball that is basically vibrating of neutrons, and it is some of the most amazing physics. I think there's a lot of physicists that would love to be able to just scale those layers and find out what is beneath it, because it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder as we get closer. So, yeah, and it's we're actually seeing we can actually record the actual nebula itself getting larger and larger and larger, because it is expanding at about 1,500 kilometers per second. So
that's quite fast, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 That would be great to go up to, say, Carnarvon, Roger, or Gascoyne
Yeah, that
Junction.
would be quick, wouldn't
That
it?
would only be like minimum, I think, 1 second around to get up to Gascoyne Junction or Carnarvon around that mark. So, yeah.
Now, I just thought I'd try something random here, and I did a bit of a Google to see what does an RGB image of M1 look like, and I see that the red veins come out in it. So I thought, well, heck, let's try a red filter on this and see if we get anything coming out
Yep.
other than sort of the general smudge of it. Not so lucky so far. I'll let it do 3 images before I give up.
Well, there it is. It's coming through
Yeah,
now.
yeah, but I'm hoping for some actual some of those cobwebs kind of thing.
Yeah.
If I didn't actually watch the live stream to catch Matt whether you showed them a picture of what it can look like.
Yeah, I did a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so there's
Yeah, just
those
watched the
cobwebby
Laram
kind
show.
of filaments which it's nice to get coming out, but you need a few filters for that.
Yeah.
Um,
But it's amazing how much material there is. So, because of those little strands uh, and tentacles and that, and fill of the filaments of dust, you can actually there's enough dust, carbon, and silicate there to make about 30,000 to 40,000 Earths.
all right.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm pretty sure this should make at least another star, in the future at least.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, interesting. I just stumbled upon my photo from 2007. Would you
Ooh,
believe it?
nice. You want
Um,
to show it?
yeah, I'll see if I can get it through to the right computer with the right
What
shared
is that?
screen. Because it actually stands up okay in the tested time considering all. Let's see if I can do this. Da, 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 da.
Now we know his file system now.
That's right.
Actually, while you no, you
There
got
you
there
go.
fairly quickly.
Yeah, so that's from 2007. How dodgy is that?
But
That's
it's amazing what technology can do and where it's come from, though.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you can see there the red veins through there, which I was hoping we would get coming out a bit more in
Yep.
this red
Just
filter.
just before we continue, sorry, Ron's going to be going to bed now. So hopefully he's still here. But Ron, what we'll do is we'll show you exactly where the Orion Nebula is. Okay, so so we draw a line here, and so he's upside down, and this is the actual Orion Nebula here. So if you've ever heard about the saucepan, so um, you draw a line here, down, through the belt, and then back up. And that's the saucepan right there. So usually you can see this star right here. So it's, oh, sorry, usually you can see this star. So it's down through the belt and up to about here. So that's where the Orion Nebula is. So we're fairly close, and you can easily see it. Even in suburbia, you can kind of just make it out as well. So yeah. All right. So we'll just go back to Roger here, and
Yeah,
it's
I've
getting.
actually
Oh, you're getting some.
got enough red frames coming through now that we are seeing some of that ribbing uh, through the nebula. I am waiting for it to come up on my iPad view of the live stream here to see if the brightness is enough for you guys to see it. Oh yeah, there we go. We have got it. So yeah, you can start to see that there, and yeah, it's very interesting to photograph that in different wavelengths, using different filters, whether it's red, green, blue, or oxygen, hydrogen, sodium, and getting that.
And you can actually,
Right.
it's useful to study objects that pass in front of the nebula as well, because it blocks out its radiation. So, like the sun and the moons that orbit planets. So, they actually in 2003, scientists used this nebula to actually measure the thickness of Titan's, Saturn's largest moon's atmosphere. So, and they
All
actually
right.
used it in the mid 20th century to map the core as the southern, or map the sun's corona as well. So it was pretty interesting what you can do with it. Has your roof closed, has it, or?
No, we've just lost connection.
Oh, okay. I just need to. Roger, they're seeing all the imperfections in my face. Quickly, quickly. so,
Um,
so you want to move on to the Rosetta Nebula in the meantime?
yeah, I'd love to. I'd
All
love
right.
to. I've just lost connection with my telescope's computer.
Oh, okay, no
So
problem.
I'm just going to have to scramble to try to reconnect to
No
that.
problem. What I'll do is while you're doing that, I'll move this on to Stellarium so that we can show these guys exactly where they are, and that way you can really panic behind the scenes here. So,
Yeah.
so again, we're going back to Monocoronus, and this we're looking right at his mouth. So for all those horse lovers, I know it's a unicorn, but for all those horse lovers out there, you do have a horse. I think there's actually a couple of horse it's constellations out there, but this is where we're looking right here. And it is something that you have to use. You can't use a massive big telescope to look at because it's just so big. But this is the Rosette Nebula. So we'll just get rid of the thing so you can. So it's lovely and red, which pinkish. So it means that it's got a lot of hydrogen in there. And so it's a reflection and an emissions nebula. So there is some light coming from the stars in the constellation there, but it is the emissions is coming from the pink as well. So it is a lovely one to take a photo, and it is actually, if you visit the Perth Observatory and you enter the main building, you'll get this lovely massive carpet tiled image of the Rosette Nebula on the wall that you enter. So it's a lovely thing to show as well. So yes, so Star Baby TY saying, "Ooh, so pretty." Yes, it is it's lovely to show. It's one of my favourite things to have a look at with astrophotography as well. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I am still scrambling like mad in the background here.
no worries, no worries. It's okay. Just let us know how much you're panicking. That would be great. Thanks.
um,
Do
I
I
will.
can try and find like the Thomas the Tank Engine, when they're in trouble.
We are. I am slowly getting there.
Yeah,
I
no
just
problem.
thought, in the meantime, I might be able to share you.
So you want to go back to your? No.
I'll just present a different window to while I get things going.
There is. We'll transition back. Ooh, pretty,
Have
very
you
pretty.
got an image of the
Yep,
rosette there?
we can see that. Yep.
Okay,
And I'm
so
not just saying
that's
that about me. I'm saying it about the nebula.
that is the Rosette Nebula. That's actually taken through this same telescope which I'm using tonight. But
Ooh,
interestingly, it's taken with my little Fuji X-E2 camera. So
that
that's
is a.
a off-the-shelf camera.
Mm,
Uh, the Fuji does a fantastic job of nebulosity. Um,
it does. It does it. I love that camera.
yeah,
Yeah.
the, just because of the different, the lack of the IR cut filter which they have in the Canons, which really hurts your nebulas. I mean, this object looks pretty good in a Canon, but the nebulosity just comes to another level in the Fuji's,
Yeah.
similar in the Sony's. Um, and that shot was actually stacked from JPEGs out of the camera, believe it
Oh
or not.
wow.
Like,
It's
oh my
not
god,
raw
I didn't
files or
think
anything like that.
um, so yeah, it shows. I suppose I like to use that as an example of how you can use a fairly entry to mid level camera. Like these days, you could buy a secondhand Fuji X-E2 for I don't know, probably $400 or something.
Mm,
Um, the brand new one's probably the current model's probably 8,000. Put it on a short focal length telescope, and get stuff like that. You do need reasonable accuracy tracking. That's probably the catch.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, being able to do, I suspect that they were 3-minute exposures because that
Yep.
tends to be where I sit for a lot of my easy, quick grab stuff.
So
Uh,
hopefully everyone's writing this down because he's not very forthcoming with what he likes to do
oh,
with
come
his
on.
special. So
Not very
yes,
forthcoming, but I teach workshops.
yes. He always says, "Matt, just organize a workshop for myself." So.
that's, that's right.
No,
I'm not
no.
telling you nothing.
Roger is very good with me, and answers all my questions. So even if they're stupid,
Uh,
but this is a nebula. So unlike the Crab Nebula, which we saw, which is what's called a planetary nebula, this is an emissions nebula, or also a little bit of a reflective nebula. So these are two types. This is two types of nebulas that we have. One we won't probably see tonight is what the other one type is dark nebula, which is something like the Coalsack Nebula, which is right next to the Southern Cross. This has been making stars for at least the last 5 million years. So again, the stars that you can see in the center there, they're very, very young. And you can actually see it has been seen in with binoculars. So you'd probably definitely want to be out where there's absolutely no light pollution. But yeah, that redness only really comes through once you start taking long exposures with the camera. It will look a bluish grey color. But this is about 5,200 light years away from Earth, and it's about 24 light years across in diameter as well. Well, actually, it's about 130 light years across in diameter as well. So it's significantly larger than the Orion Nebula as well, which is only about 24 light years across. So,
all
but
right,
yeah,
you
and it's
keep talking, Matt, but I'm
yeah,
just
it's
going to
okay,
switch presenting screens.
no problem. And it is also the Orion Nebula is also a lot closer as well. So this is about the Orion Nebula is about 1,344 light years away from us. So, ooh, here we go. It's back, baby. The camera's back. Awesome. Oh, the telescope's back. It didn't blow. It didn't get blown away.
I was going to say it got blown away, and I sent the drone out to pick it up and put it back in the
Yes,
observatory.
actually, that is one thing that's amazing about Roger's property. His security cameras are actually good enough to do astrophotography, and Roger was actually able to see because they went in at night time. They're in infrared mode. He could actually see with the photos that were taken from his security camera the bushfire, and the
Yeah.
bushfire is
Oh,
over 100 kilometers away from where Roger's property is in the central wheat
yeah.
belt.
Yeah, it was quite bright actually. It was oversaturating the security cameras, the bright spot from the bushfire, yeah, which is not good. But it was low on the horizon. Not good in sense of not good for the people in that situation is what I was meaning. So we have got some images coming up here now. We've got two so far. The third should bring this into better detail. Got the stars in the centre that Matt was talking about. You were saying they were very young stars, were you, Matt?
Yeah, yep, they're very young.
And we've got some of these. You mentioned dark nebula. I expected that would be referring to these patches through here where
Oh no,
there's
I was
four.
just saying that tonight we'll see. We've seen three types of nebula. The fourth type, which of nebula, which is dark sky, dark nebula, we won't see. Yeah,
Yeah.
but those
Okay.
stars are around about 6 million Kelvin. So, and they do put off a lot of X-rays. So, I wouldn't be putting any roast beef or roast chicken or pork over there, anywhere near it, because not only will it fry, it will cook quickly in literally less than a second, but you'll also be X-rayed quite a lot as well. And also, it's going to take a long time to get 5,200 light years from Earth. So, yeah.
So I think I guess these darker patches here I would expect is foreground material which is obscuring the background, which is similar. Well, I would expect the same interpretation as a dark nebula. It's just it's not a whole nebula here, which is it's part of it.
Yeah.
You can see the stars have trailed a bit, and that's because it's getting blown around. So it just had some gusts come through, which are quite strong, and so the telescope's being blown around a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually coming up okay there. This is in hydrogen alpha filter. I used that one straight off the bat so that the stars were not too bright. H alpha is just good for showing nebulosity from emissions nebulas and cutting that brightness of the stars a little bit.
Yeah. So Shrek is saying, who is Roger Groom? Well, Roger Groom is also another volunteer at the Perth Observatory, just like me, but he's also a fantastic astrophotographer, and he runs his own astrophotography business, Astrophotography Australia. So, and he's also the Astrofest astrophotography curator as well. So, exhibition curator.
That as well. Yeah.
Yep.
And I run this business hosting telescopes out in dark skies as well. But
And
yeah,
that's not even your day job. None of those are your day jobs. So,
my astronomy started in 1998 when I got my first telescope. So it's crazy to think it's been 22, 23 years.
Yeah, mine was. I remember going out and seeing Space Shuttle Columbia fly over Northern with my dad in '95. Yeah, that was back in the days when they didn't have to take Rick Arden and Susanna Carr out of the freezer just to do the news and back in. They made a massive big deal about that. So it was like Dad's like definitely coming out. You like that look up program on ABC Kids. So yeah, it was amazing to see it.
I don't watch commercial TV very much. I'm too busy with other things. But we were desperate for some extra fire information last night, and had a look at the 7 News, and I was blown away. I couldn't believe those two were still on the 7 News in Perth.
It's something like they've actually been. So you're probably going to figure out my age, but I think they've been on TV 1 year older than 1 year more than I've been alive, and I think I'm turning 86 was my birth year, so I'm turning 35 in less than a month now. Oh boy! But we'll go back to before you find a joke out of that. We'll go back to some interesting facts about this. So when I mentioned beforehand that it's 130 light years across, that seems a big number, but to put it into perspective, that's the same size as roughly five full moons across. That's how big it is. So some of these nebulas are getting decent in size. the largest thing we can show you at the observatory that's not a galaxy is or the most furthest object that we can show you that's not a galaxy, is the Tarantula Nebula, and that's 700 light years across. And if you were to bring that to the same distance as the Orion Nebula, which is again 1,344 light years away from us, it would take up about 60% of our night sky, and you could read a newspaper with it. So the universe likes to do stuff big. So yeah.
Now, for our last object, I was hoping to do another supernova remnant, which is the
Veil.
The Vela, but
yeah.
I've decided not to because we've got a bit of cloud intermittently going over the side.
No worries.
I know Vela supernova remnant is faint, so I'm just going to go to the Pleiades, which is what we were trying to get to last time, but
the moon was right next to us.
Actually, that was the time before we tried.
Oh, was it? Oh, that we've gone.
Ken suggested to do it that time when the moon was full. Thanks a lot, Ken.
Yep.
Look, we knew it would be touch and go, and then the time after that we actually tried to do it, and the roof closed because of wind. So we haven't had a lot of luck with Messier 45, as simple and boring as the object may be. We haven't actually ended up doing it yet.
So actually, while you're organising that, I will go back to Stellarium.
Gee, and Messier 45 Pleiades is getting west now, isn't it, Matt?
No, it's
that northwest.
It's scary when you go, oh god, a couple of months and we'll get Saturn and Jupiter and Jupiter and Saturn finally come up during the night sky tours, and then then it's like, they're going into the west. And you think, oh boy, it's only a couple of months for Orion, and then you go, wait, well, that's a lot of time's gone by. So yeah, all right. So we're going back to Taurus. So instead of we've gone through just 2 constellations tonight. So we're going here, and this is where the Pleiades cluster is, right here, right on the ball. And you can actually see this with the naked eye. It's actually better to look at it with a wide field telescope or a set of binoculars, because they are so large as well. So this is it right here. Now they are called the Seven Sisters. But you can only see 2 of them, and that's because we've got Alcyone here, and I think Alcyone, and I think it was Atlas, is it, or one of the Pleione? They've got so close over the last thousands of years, 1,000 years or so, that they only appear as one. So it is a very, very nice object to take photos of as well. So go back to Roger and see how he's doing.
We've only got 1 image up so far.
Okay, well, that means we can have a chat about it. So if anyone drives a Subaru car, or has seen a Subaru car, back in my kids' day, I wanted a Subaru Impreza so bad because they were winning all the rally championships with Colin McRae and Peter Solberg. But you'll notice that there's, on the badge of the Subaru, there are 6 stars. Those 6 stars are the Pleiades cluster. The Japanese call the Pleiades cluster Subaru. And there's some thinking that this is a story that could go back as far as about 100,000 years. Because wherever you go in the world, the ancient cultures always see these stars as women. Doesn't matter, it could be wives, could be daughters, sisters, but they always have roughly around the same story. So what you could actually be seeing is that as the human Homo sapiens left Africa and went into Asia, and then Central Asia, and then continued into Europe, and then into Southeast Asia, and then proceeded to go into Northern Asia, and then crossed the Bering Strait during the Ice Age and into North America, and also continuing from Southeast Asia into Australia, and also finally from North America down to South America. This story was carried with them, and it just over time, because it was all spoken word, that there were slight changes between the different cultures. And so it's quite amazing. It's about 440 light years away from us. So it is relative, very, very close in terms of star clusters. And there's about, I think there's about 100 of them associated to the actual cluster as well. So
Them being stars, I presume you mean.
yeah, and we've actually one of the interesting things that's come out over the last couple of years is the Europeans have a project, space telescope called uh, Gaia, and Gaia is actually is a space telescope that takes photos of the entire sky over a series of period of I think about a month or two. And from that data, we've actually been able to find out that it's actually elongated. So it's an elliptical shape and it's pointing towards us. And the bigger stars, which should actually be in the center, are more towards us, which is very, very interesting.
So I was taking some shots using the blue filter because I figured, well, Pleiades usually comes up quite blue in images,
Yeah,
and that was working out okay. But I thought I'd reset it because it had got blown around a bit with the wind, so the stars were trailing quite a bit. So I've just reset it to the luminance filter. Immediately got some nebulosity coming up visible
yeah,
near those stars. I've posted in the chat there, what's it called, Discord chat, a link to an article on theconversation.com, which I think is one of the best news sites to go to. And it's got quite an interesting, concise article there about how far back the stories from about Pleiades or Messier 45 go. So I recommend having a look at that.
yeah. And so yeah, it's been formed within the last 100 million years. So that nebulosity that we actually see there, that isn't actually the original nebula that created these stars. It just happens to be that they're going through. Actually, one of the, I think, can you get on the Astronomy WA page? Can you get previous winners of the astrophotography workshop? Oh, sorry,
Sure.
astrophotography exhibition, just off the top of your head. I think you might be because there's, or at least the brochures you can get, because one of our volunteers, Andrew Lockwood, did this fantastic shot of the Pleiades with a comet next to it. And it looks so simple, but he went through the process of what he had to do to take these shots. And it's just mind-boggling what he had to do to get such a good image.
Yeah,
And it was
yeah,
a really stunning image.
it is
Yeah.
a challenge.
Nothing is ever easy with astrophotography. That's the problem with simple. People think simple means it was simply done. No, it means it looks easy, but there's a hell of a lot of complexity to that, to something that's go on to make it look simple as well. So
Yeah, that's right. And in getting something like a comet, which is a moving object, in front of a long exposure like Pleiades, there's a lot of trickery, a lot of like it's not false, but a lot of work there to get those layering up and to represent it how it would at that moment in time, because it is over a passage of time.
yeah,
It is quite tricky. I just had a quick look for you, Matt, and I can't see the
no
photo.
problem.
Sorry.
So astronomers think that the cluster will survive another 250 million years before they'll just go off in because of the gravitational interactions of themselves, plus with the galactical neighborhood. But together with the open cluster, which is called Hyades, which is they call it the Golden Gate of the ecliptics. So that's the triangle that makes the head of Taurus. So but the original name of the Pleiades were the seven sisters from their mother Pleione and also Atlas. And so the story was that Orion, will bring up the stellarium again, we'll show you. So the story is that Orion was the most handsome man in the world, and he was also the greatest hunter in the world. And he saw the Pleiades cluster and fancied himself all those seven daughters, sisters, and so they ran away. And was chasing them, and they pleaded for Zeus to save them. And so he turns them into doves first so that they can fly away, and then he puts them into the sky. But also Orion gets put into the sky for his great deeds of killing one of every animal, and also after his death with from the scorpion. But he puts Taurus in the bull in the sky to protect the Pleiades from Orion. And actually, the Taurus, the bull, is actually Zeus himself, because Zeus turns himself into a bull because he falls in love with Europa and wants to take off with him, take off with her, and that's why actually Europe is called Europe, because after Europa, and the 4 Galilean moons are all named after the lovers of Zeus as well. So Ganymede, who is Aquarius, and there's Io and Callisto as well. So they're the as well as Europa. So they're the 4 major moons of Jupiter. So yeah. So there
So I
you
think
go.
we'll be wrapping up fairly soon, but just looking back at the image we've got here, it's coming up with some nice detail in the nebulosity now. But we've got one satellite trail, a second satellite trail, a third satellite trail. Yeah, there's satellites going all through this at the moment.
It's a super
which
highway
is
there.
typical for that part of the sky. It's not too far off the geo belt and the celestial equator, but yeah.
Yeah, it's been felt well known to the Celts, the Hawaiians, the indigenous people of Australia, the Persians, Hindus, Chinese, Japanese, the Mayan, the Aztecs, Cherokee as well. The Maoris. This is very important to the Maoris as well. They're Matariki, I think it's called. So it's quite an interesting story, and it's one of those things you just go out and, even in suburbia, if you have a look north, you'll definitely be able to find them, because they're so close to Orion, and Orion's one of those constellations that actually looks like what it says it is. So yeah.
Yeah, so I've just brightened it up a little bit there. It's always hard to know how this shows on everyone's live stream, but
yeah, and then you've also got to deal with everyone's screen's slightly different as well. So
yes, a photographer's nightmare, color matching. All right, so I think that's our last object for tonight.
No problem. Well, thank you, Roger, for joining us tonight. Thanks for joining us over the last couple of them as well, so we can use your telescope.
All right, a little bit of a
you've had a very big day.
That's right. It's been a interesting few days, but what are we up to? Wednesday, so 2 days left of this week of lockdown in WA before we find out if the kids can go back to school. School. I don't mind working at home. Let the kids go back to school.
Well, guys, thanks very much for joining us tonight. Hopefully you've had a lovely time. Just a couple of things before we go. We've got Astrofest on at least for now, on the 20th of February at Curtin University. So hopefully it's a free event from 5:30 to 9:30. So hopefully you can join us there. We also have our summer lecture on the 27th of February at the observatory. So we're going to be talking, it's a fairly interesting topic called on light pollution. So we'll be open from 6 p.m. So if you want to bring a picnic dinner, or if you want to grab some food from the food van there, or grab a coffee, you're more than welcome to. And the talk will be at 8. And yeah, it's always a good night, these summer lectures. There you get really good up-to-date knowledge. And it will be on not only about what happens, light pollution with the night sky, but what happens with light pollution of us, and also animals as well. So it's definitely an interesting topic to see. And Western Power, or the West Australian Planning Department, has actually put up a policy for comments as well. So it's good timing to have a talk on light pollution, so that we can regain some of our night sky, because 2/3 of the world population can't see the Milky Way, and it's a pretty amazing thing to see. So hopefully you will see you very soon, and even on one of our night sky tours. If you want to book, you might have to book in May at the way we're going, but because we're so fully booked. But if you've liked this, please subscribe to the Perth Observatory YouTube page. Give this video a like, and tell your friends and family about it. We've got our social media links down in the description here, so you can keep up to date with what's happening in astronomy and at the observatory. And if you want to keep on giving us some money so we can keep on doing this, there's the Discord channel link down below, and you will give you some cool merch for helping us out as well. So it all goes into helping the observatory, because we are the volunteers are running the observatory for the government. So so it is keeping a very important part of WA's history alive. And also, it's amazing to come up and have a look at telescopes. It's a good thing to show your kids, and also date night as well. So you get a lot of brownie points for coming. So thanks, guys, for joining us tonight. And hopefully you have a great week, and hopefully we can come out of lockdown